All right, welcome to another episode of Comic Book Squares. We got another great one today. My name's Shane.
I'm Carrie.
I'm Ben.
And I'm Mike. Let's get this show started.
All right, welcome to another episode. This is going to be a good one. I really like this book a lot. This is another review episode. So thanks again, Paul, for bringing this to our attention. Paul, tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, thanks, Shane. So this one's called Psycho List, which, is pretty much a giveaway of which direction this is going to go. So it's an interesting but pretty rough story to read. It's set in a town called, it starts out in a town called Cairo, Illinois. Looks like Cairo, but it's not. Here in Illinois, they say it Cairo. It's a small little river town in southern Illinois. What I would throw out there is, maybe a warning to some folks who might be interested in reading something like this. If you're sensitive to any kind of domestic abuse, this book kind of starts off in that way, pretty hot and heavy, and then it moves to a more modern setting. Reminded me a little bit of Manhunter.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, some FBI profiling and things like that, and there's some pretty gruesome stuff on the horizon for our character. You can tell he's not he's not the nicest guy, but apparently he gets the job done because they come looking for him. So interested in hearing what the rest of you guys think about it.
Yeah, I've got a lot of thoughts on it, but I'd like to hear. Carrie, what were your thoughts?
I just want to say that first of all, I want to start from the beginning. The cover I thought was beautiful. The They do this really incredible color blending,
Mhm.
especially in the first few pages. You can see the backgrounds they're blended just really beautifully. As an artist, I have a hard time getting blending that well, so when I see it, I'm just like, oh my god, it's beautiful.
Mhm.
And the colors that they use are really gorgeous. And thank you for bringing up the DV issue, just as like a warning. There's definitely a a pretty heavy tone of DV in the beginning, and I think it plays throughout, giving where that
Sure.
this episode ends. There's it's going to come back around.
Mhm.
Um, and I thought some Constantine vibes. Like here's this, guy
Mhm.
in the night who does amazing things, and he's not part of the force, but they want him to be involved. And so a little bit of Batman esque um, vibes there with being connected to the police department, but not being part of the police department. And then I am very intrigued. I definitely want to read the next one.
Yeah, I think it's a, again, sometimes it's a difficult story to tell. It's certainly out there. And so I know sometimes it's a fine edge. Like sometimes people go to this medium to kind of escape reality. It's kind of like why people see movies,
Mm.
right? It's like, I just want to kind of escape a little bit. But I think on the other side of that coin, or again, kind of that fine line, is that, talking about it and how certain folks deal with it in some cases, I don't know if this is the case or not, if it happened to be in any of the people involved in the book, if it's their way of kind of getting that out, and sometimes it's either telling their story or just a similar story and getting it out there. So it's definitely always a challenging or difficult story sometimes when it hits realism, but I think it was very well done as far as, they definitely, it has some moments where if I think you were in a similar situation, it might be a little difficult, but I think that the story itself is very well written. I think the as a as a as a book, the as Carrie mentioned, the colors, fantastic palettes, just wonderful. The artistry is really, really good. So I think overall, this book is very solid as far as bringing it to the masses, or bringing, sometimes it's about awareness and just, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of like you said, Carrie, it's kind of like Batman, it's like when things uh, affect your life, certainly you can go the hero route, you can go the villain route, you can kind of float around the hero villain kind of buckets a little bit, but it's going to be interesting to see how this one plays out for sure.
Yeah, it seems a bit like a anti-hero
Mhm.
direction.
Well, I mean, I really, really enjoyed this piece. I like some of the darker material, and I totally get the DV stuff is really rough, especially like that's how the story kicks off. And so, if you're sensitive to that, I would avoid this at all costs. But I like where they're going with this character, and we've reviewed a couple of other books recently where they start off with a storyline, and then it doesn't ever come back to it, and so it was confusing for me as a reader. This one, they start off with a storyline, and there's a big comeback to it at the end, which I really enjoyed a lot. So for me, from a storytelling standpoint, this writer understands how to open a story and close a story and bring it all together as one cohesive unit. I also really like things that look at the psychology of human beings, and for me, that's what this book does. I understand, Carrie and Mike, you're talking about whether the kind of an anti-hero, but I think that from the elements that happen in the beginning of the story, and we find out why this person is maybe the way that they are because of those events, and how that can impact you and mold you into the person that you are. So I find all of that really fascinating, and I'd love to see how they continue that with that character. The one thing I would say about this is that there's a Robert Kirkman, the creator of Walking Dead and Invincible, he did another book that they made a television show for that I absolutely loved, and was devastated that they didn't continue it. It's called Outcast. And it was a real disservice that they put it on Cinemax, because it didn't get the audience that I felt like it needed. It was done really, really well, and I feel like there's some elements almost of Outcast in that this character has this ability. They haven't really fully defined it yet in this first issue, but I could see like kind of little traces of that if you're familiar with Outcast. So yeah, I mean, I really like this, and I would see myself continuing to read this for sure. So I appreciate it, Paul. Thanks.
Yeah, so I agree with everything all you guys said. It was very interesting. Obviously, it gets started pretty intensely, and then once they get into the meat of the story, I think they do a good job explaining of kind of how this character started and how he ends up where he is now, and that the story is going to get a lot more interesting because obviously at the end there's a little twist, as you mentioned, Shane, where it calls back to the beginning. So. You know, like I said, it kind of reminded me of Manhunter, a little bit of your callback to Outcast was pretty interesting because you got this. He was sort of in an awkward situation as he grew up, and then of course he becomes, I guess, a real important part of that story. Like he needs to be back where he is to sort of continue the story. And I guess that's the way I look at this character too. Is he's pretty obviously, they come looking for him, and without spoiling the entire thing, obviously, he's got this trauma in his past. That's how he ended up where he is, and then all of a sudden, here comes the FBI. Right? They need him, and so I thought that was kind of unique. That was kind of the Mindhunter link that I thought of, but again, calling it Psycho List is pretty much giving it away where it's gonna go. And I think, Carrie's reference to, Batman, the anti-hero, this guy, he finds himself in a situation where maybe I can't help these people professionally, but I can help them in other ways. Right. And so that's where that anti-hero thing comes. So I'm wondering, you can only do that so many times before it circles back on you, because it doesn't look like he's got Wayne Industries backing him. So, you can only
Yeah.
only meet 6, 7 ex-football players in dark alleys until maybe you get your ass whooped. So it's going to be interesting. Yeah. And
it's got kind of like a noir kind of,
Yeah.
detective, black and white,
Yep.
that kind of feel,
Yep, definitely.
mixed into it for sure.
Yep.
For me, I always find it interesting, for writers when you're tackling a piece that, is going to be a long-term piece, finding a creative way to establish what that story is and how that's going to be. Like if you look at some older television shows like Kung Fu or The Incredible Hulk or The A-Team, like it's established right off the bat, they're going to move from town to town and they're going to help some people. And that's going to be the episode. And then next episode, they're going to move from town to town and do the same thing. And there was a TV show a while ago called My Name is Earl. I don't know if anybody's seen that, but I really enjoyed that show. And they established right off the bat, like he has a list of things that he has to accomplish. And so every episode is going to be crossing another thing off that list. And so this idea of establishing the psycho list, like we already know this is what's going to, every episode is going to be, or issue is going to be, or a series of episodes is going to be him tackling this thing. Once again, from a storytelling standpoint, I'm just kind of enamored with how intelligently they've tackled this right off the bat.
For sure.
So, but yeah, once again, the material is rough, especially right off the bat. They don't hold back at all. So yeah, if you're sensitive to that.
And there are subsequent
100%
issues, on Global Comics, so I obviously not for our review here, but I did breeze through issues 2 and 3.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. The cover to number 3 is, interesting to say the least. So, but yeah, there are subsequent issues. So, as Shane's going to talk about, if you're interested in this kind of thing and you can stomach the first few pages, I think you got a good story waiting for you here.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. To your point, Paul, Global Comics has always been a big supporter of this show, and we love them. And we've been able to do the review off their platform. So, it's a fantastic place to sign up and be able to find some of these smaller publishers and be able to try out some new material that is going to be off the beaten path for sure. I highly recommend checking it out if you're okay with the material.
Yep.
So, well, thanks again, Paul, for bringing this to our attention. I appreciate it. And please hit that like, subscribe, and notification bell so we can keep bringing you content like this. And we'll see you on the next one.
Take care.